Welcome to Computer Newbies Part 2. In this class, you'll learn how to use a USB drive. You'll also learn about creating folders and saving and opening files. What is a computer file? A file is a collection of computer data that has some common purpose. Examples of files are resumes, letters, and calendars. You may remember from Computer Newbies that hardware is any part of your computer that has physical structure, such as your keyboard or your mouse. Hardware also includes the internal parts of a computer, like a computer drive. A computer drive is hardware that is used to store and read information on a computer. So when you create a file, such as a letter on a computer, if you want to use that letter again or edit that letter again, you would need to save it to a computer drive. The hard drive is the main storage area in a computer, and this is a picture of a hard drive, and each computer has a hard drive inside the computer case. For this class, we're going to learn how to use a USB drive. Just like a hard drive, a USB drive is used to store files, but a USB drive is portable. The USB drive plugs into a computer using a USB connection, and once information is saved to the USB drive, it can be inserted into another computer, and then the information can be viewed on that computer also. Here's a picture of somebody inserting a USB drive into a USB connection. All computers have USB connections. On a desktop, they are at the front of the computer case as well as the back of the computer case. And on a laptop, they're more likely to be on the side or the back of the laptop. We're going to be using a USB drive for the next section of the class. So I'd like you to take your USB drive and insert it into the computer. When you do that, you'll see an autoplay window appear. And when that happens, I will go ahead and tell you how to proceed. So I'd like you to go ahead and insert the USB drive into the USB connection on your computer. I'm going to do the same thing. And once I've inserted mine into the computer and I can view the autoplay window, we'll go ahead and continue. So you want to go ahead and find the USB connection, insert your USB drive. Your USB drive is only going to be able to be inserted one way. So if you try to put it into the connection and it doesn't fit in smoothly, flip the USB drive and try it again. Okay, so at this point, you should have found the USB connection, and you should have put the USB drive into that connection. If you're not ready to continue, if you have not yet inserted the USB drive and have not yet seen the autoplay window, go ahead and stop the course, put the USB drive in, and when the autoplay window appears, come back to the course. All right, so the autoplay window shows that's indicating that the computer sees that you have inserted a USB drive into the computer. Once you've inserted the USB drive into the computer, you can open a folder to view the files that are saved onto it using Windows Explorer. We don't have anything saved onto our USB drive at this point, but we're going to go ahead and go to Windows Explorer so that you can see how Windows Explorer displays the USB drive. And then we're also going to learn how to rename the USB drive and create folders that we can save files to. To view your USB drive in Windows Explorer, go ahead and move your mouse into the autoplay window, and your mouse will display as a hand icon. You want to point the hand icon to Open Folder to view files, like I'm doing, and you're just going to click one time. Great. Now you're in Windows Explorer. On the left side of Windows Explorer, you will see the navigation pane. Now the navigation pane is there to display the storage areas that are available to you on a computer. Now there's quite a lot of information in the navigation pane, but we're going to focus today on working with a USB drive. Now before we do that, let's just take a quick look at what is displayed in that navigation pane. It's divided into different sections. At the top is a favorite section. We will not be using that today. There's also a library section. Now we're using a PC computer with a Windows 7 operating system. The Windows 7 operating system computers are set up with libraries so that you could save documents, music, pictures, or videos into the correct area. And you could also create your own libraries. Now, remember, for today, we're focusing on using a USB drive because we want you to be able to save files to a portable storage device that you can use on more than one computer. So although all Windows 7 computers come with the libraries, and you may, at home or in the workplace, use the libraries area to store files, for today, remember, our focus will be on the USB drive. Now, I'm going to skip the computer section just for a moment. And I want to point out that on my computer, I actually can access a network of other computers. And you may find that when you are working in the workplace. But for today, we will not even discuss the network section. Our whole focus today, and I'm moving my mouse in this area, in the navigation pane is the computer section. I want you to notice in the computer section, at the bottom of the list, highlighted is the USB drive that you just put into your computer. Now your USB drive has a name, and that name is the manufacturer of the USB drive. So that's why my USB drive is called Kingston. Yours most likely has a different name. I also want to point out to you that a USB drive has other names. So a USB drive could be referred to as a flash drive, or it could be referred to as a thumb drive. All of those terms mean the same thing as USB drive. So, in the computer section, you can easily find your USB drive because it's highlighted right now. Now, I want you to notice that it also is labeled with a letter. The drives that you can store to on a computer are labeled with letters. The hard drive, which is the storage area inside your computer case, is labeled as C. Now on your computer, you may have other letters that label drives in the computer section. Yours may look different than mine. They may be labeled differently, and that's okay. So regardless of the letter that your USB drive is labeled with, I want you to know that you can identify it because it's highlighted and it has a name. For example, mine is called Kingston. Now, to make using this USB drive easier, we're going to go ahead and rename your USB drive with your name. So that time, each time you're working with your USB drive, regardless of what computer you're using, it will display with your name. So let's go ahead and rename this. What I'd like you to do is to move your mouse right over your USB drive, and you'll see the hand icon when you do that. Next, to rename the USB drive, you're going to right-click with your mouse. When you use a right-click in Windows, a pop-up menu will display. We're going to go ahead and use the rename command. So I'd like you to take the hand icon, point to the word rename, and left-click. Notice when you do that, the name of your USB drive becomes highlighted. Now what I'd like you to do is to change the name of the USB drive to your name, and you have a couple of different options. You can either type just your first name, or you can type your first name and then press the space bar, and you could type the first initial of your last name. Go ahead and type the name in lowercase. And when we're finished with this process, it's going to go ahead and change that to uppercase anyhow. Now this is highlighted, so you do not need to press your backspace or your delete key on your keyboard. You're just going to go ahead and start typing. I'll type my name, you type your name. So I'm typing my first name. It's in lowercase, but it's going to be changed to uppercase when we're finished. And then I'm going to press spacebar and type my last initial. Now you can either just type your first name, or if you want to follow my lead, you can type your first name and last name. Okay, to complete this process, once you've typed your name, you want to press the Enter key on your computer. So press the Enter key, And then you'll see that you've now renamed your USB drive. Now think about your USB drive as a place to store the data or the files that you can create on your computer. So think of your USB drive as being a file cabinet. When you're working with a file cabinet, whether it be on a computer like your USB drive or a physical file cabinet, you'll want to create folders to put papers in. So as we move through this class, we are actually going to create some information on the computer, and we're going to save those as files. And we're going to want to save the files into folders on our USB drive. So we're going to use the Windows Explorer, and we're going to create 2 new folders. And then once we do that, we'll be ready to move into Microsoft Word and create files, and we'll have folders all ready to store those files. So let's go ahead and create folders. Now to do that, we're going to use the same pop-up menu that we used to rename your USB drive. So if you will, take your mouse, move it to your USB drive, which is now labeled with your name. When you move your mouse over your USB drive, you'll see the hand icon. And then remember to display the pop-up menu, you're going to right-click. And once that menu appears, you're going to use the command to create a new folder. Go ahead and move your mouse to the New selection. Notice that you'll see an arrow display when you do that. Then I'd like you to go ahead and move to Folder and simply left-click. Now when you move to Folder and you left-click, New Folder will be highlighted. So the next step is we need to give this a name. Now remember, because that's highlighted in blue, we're simply going to key right over it. Well, one of the first type of files we're going to create is a calendar. So let's call this folder Calendar. So go ahead and type Calendar, C-A-L-E-N-D-A-R. So it's C-A-L-E-N-D-A-R. And let's go ahead and make that first letter capital. It's a good idea to capitalize the first letter of your folders. So once you've typed Calendar, you'll press Enter. So now, if you think of your USB drive as a file cabinet, you've created a folder that you'll be able to file papers in, and the folder is named Calendar. Now, let's review those steps again. Let's say that you wanted to use Microsoft Word to create a resume. So you wanted to create a folder to store that resume. So let's go ahead and create a new folder. If you will, take your mouse. When the hand icon displays, as you put it over your USB drive, you're going to right-click, and then the pop-up menu will display. You'll move the hand icon to New. You'll move it to Folder. And when the new folder area becomes highlighted, you'll go ahead and type Resume. Do a capital R-E-S-U-M-E. That's Resume. Now remember, after you have typed the folder name in, you're going to press the Enter key on the keyboard. Okay, so you have come into Windows Explorer. You have used the pop-up menu to rename your USB drive. And then we have talked about thinking of the USB drive as a file cabinet, and you have created 2 folders for that file cabinet. You've created a calendar folder and a resume folder. Now, the next thing that we need to do is to create the files and store them in the folders. But before we do that, I want to make sure that you understand that inside the Windows Explorer, items can be collapsed or expanded. And the reason that's important is because if something is collapsed, you may not be able to view what you need to see. So for example, if your USB drive was collapsed, you might not be able to see the calendar and resume folders, which would be a problem if you were trying to get to them to see files. So focusing on this computer area, what I'd like you to do is notice that to the left of computer, there's a triangle, and this is called your expand collapse triangle. Now right now, the triangle is in a position, and it has, because of the position it's in, the computer section is expanded. What that means is inside the computer section, I can see the different storage areas, including my USB drive and the folders inside it. If the computer section were collapsed, I would not be able to see that. How do you collapse a section? I want you to take your mouse, move it over to the triangle, and remember that's called your expand, collapse triangle, but from here on out, I'm just going to refer to it as a triangle. Now what I'd like you to do is click one time on the triangle. Now look at the difference on your screen. Now the triangle is pointing to the word computer. The computer section is collapsed. I cannot see anything besides the name computer. So I cannot see the hard drive, which is the C drive, and I cannot see the USB drive, which we need to see for our work that we'll do today. I'm showing you this because you may work on a computer and you may come into the navigation pane, and if the last person who worked on the computer collapsed the computer section, you will need to know how to expand it so you can find your USB drive. To expand it, you will click on the triangle. So this triangle toggles, and toggles just means when you click it one way, a certain action happens. So when we clicked it the first time, we collapse the section. If we click it again, it will perform another action. So let's click this again. Now we have expanded this section. And that's important because now we can see our USB drive. And because we're working with our USB drive today, and you're going to need to know how to work with it in the future, it's very important that in that navigation pane, you know how to expand the computer section. So let's practice this one more time. This is expanded, which is how we would like it to look to work with it. Let's collapse it just so we can troubleshoot what we would do if that section was collapsed. How would we expand it? So to practice this, move your mouse pointer over to the triangle, click one time. Notice that when you do that, that section is collapsed. We want to expand it, and in fact, we're going to keep it expanded for the rest of the time we work in Windows Explorer today. So click on it to expand it. All right, very good. Remember our expand collapse triangle. It also appears next to or to the left of your USB drive. It's very important to understand that you can also expand and collapse the USB drive area because you always want to keep it expanded so that you can see the calendar and resume folders. So I want you to make sure it's expanded, but let's just practice what it would look like if it was collapsed by using the triangle to collapse it. Move your mouse pointer over to that triangle to the left of your USB drive. Click. Now it's collapsed. Now you may be wondering why would anybody collapse these areas? The reason why is because there's so much information in the navigation area. Sometimes people feel that all the information is overwhelming, so they choose to collapse sections so they don't have to scroll through all of the information. But for our purposes, it's very important because we're just focusing on the computer section and our USB drive. It's very important today that we keep these areas expanded. So let's click on the triangle again to make sure your USB drive is expanded so we can see the calendar and resume folders. Okay, and now they display. Okay, so for now, our work in the navigation pane is finished. We're going to move to another part of the computer, and we're going to create two files, and we're going to learn how to save those to our USB drive to the folders. And once we've completed that work, then we'll come back in to the Windows Explorer, and we'll actually take a look at how we stored those files on the computer. Okay, so I'd like you to close Windows Explorer, and you may remember from Computer Newbies 1 that to close a window, you use the X on the top right. So I want you to move your mouse up to the Close button and click. All right, let me go ahead and close what I have open here and return to the desktop, which is most likely where you are right now. Okay, so back to the desktop. Let me make sure I close out what I had open. Okay, so now we're all back to the desktop. We're going to use a program called Microsoft Word, and we're going to go ahead and start by creating a calendar. Now on this computer and on the computer that you're using, there is a suite of programs called Microsoft Office. And Microsoft Office includes Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft PowerPoint. And it also includes some other applications. But at COVA and for the My Recovery Works computer classes, our focus is on Microsoft Office as Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft PowerPoint. Now, you can use those programs to create different types of files that you might need at home or in the workplace. Microsoft Excel is used if you wanted to create budgets or maybe contact lists. Microsoft PowerPoint is used if you needed to do some type of a presentation, maybe if you were a student or in the workplace. And then Microsoft Word is used to create documents such as letters, resumes, or calendars. Microsoft Office is used by almost everybody in a workplace, and a lot of people use it at home too. So to practice creating files for this class today, we're going to go ahead and use Microsoft Word. So I'd like you to open Word. I'd like you to look on your desktop, and the little pictures that you see on your desktop, you'll remember from Computer Newbies 1, those are called icons. So I'd like you to find the Microsoft Word icon. It has a blue W, and I'd like you to go ahead and move your mouse, which looks like a pointer, to that icon, and then double-click to open the program. Now, as an alternative, because computers can be set up differently, you may have that blue Microsoft Word icon. I just moved my mouse down here. Remember from Computer Newbies 1, we learned that this area down here in the gray bar is called your taskbar. You might have a Microsoft Word shortcut there. And if you do, you could get into Word that way. But find the Microsoft Word icon or shortcut and go ahead and open Word. Okay, and now you are looking at Microsoft Word. All right, so I want you to notice there's a blank document open in Word. And if you look up here at the top of the screen, this is called the title bar, and this just shows me I have a document. It's the first document I've opened today, so it's called Document 1, and I'm in Microsoft Word. Now, the purpose of this part of the class is not to teach you everything about Microsoft Word. If you want to know more about Microsoft Word, we do offer a Word 1 class and then a Word 2 class. Today, the purpose of this part of the class is to show you how to save a file and to store it onto your USB drive. So what we're going to be doing in Word today is we are going to be using one of the tabs. So in Microsoft Word, as you work in the program, you will move to tabs that have the commands that you want to use. Today, the only commands that we're going to use have to do with files on a computer. So I want you to notice that you have a File tab, and I'm circling my mouse on there. Because we're going to be working with files today, we're going to learn how to create new files, and then we're going to learn how to save files. To save us some time today, we're going to be using Microsoft Word templates. Now, when you start in Word, you can see that you have a blank document. So if you wanted to create a document, for example, we're going to go ahead and we'll create a calendar. It would take a long time for us to try to create a calendar and draw all the boxes. So Microsoft Word has developed templates that are pre-formatted documents that are already set up for us. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to create a calendar, and the calendar will be created very quickly, and then we can just go ahead and add information onto certain dates on the calendar. So to use templates in Word, because they are files, we're going to go ahead and use the File tab. So if you'll follow with me, if you'll take your mouse, click on the File tab. Make sure you give that a good click, because when you click on it, your screen should display, and instead of seeing the blank document, you'll see what we call the backstage view. Now, your backstage view may look different than mine, and that's fine. What we're focusing on here in this backstage view is this left bar over here that has different file commands. And the one that we're going to use right now is the New selection. So under your File tab, I want you to take your mouse pointer, move it down to New, and then click one time. Now, we're going to use a template. Word comes with many templates, and remember, templates are pre-formatted documents that will be generated on our screen, and then we can use them, customize them somewhat, and then save them. Now, your templates are located in folders in this area, but there's a quick way to find templates instead of having to click on each folder, and that's to search for templates. So right now, we are going to find a calendar template. So what I need you to do is to watch what I'm doing with my mouse and find this area on your screen. I want you to find the search box, and I'm moving my mouse over that area. It says searchoffice.com for templates. That's what we want to do. So to use this search feature, you want to take your mouse and you want to click. When you do that, you will see a flashing insertion point in that search box. That means it's ready for us to type in a word or words and search for it. So at this point, my mouse looks like a pointer. I can take my mouse, I can move that over to the side because I came into the search box and I clicked. And when I did that, the insertion point began flashing. So right now I don't need to use my mouse. I'm going to go ahead and key information at that insertion point. So I'd like you to go ahead and type calendar, C-A-L-E-N-D-A-R. And you want to make sure you spell that correctly. So type that carefully. It's C-A-L-E-N-D-A-R. Now once you've typed calendar, you want to press your Enter key on your keyboard. And the computer will search for calendars on office.com. Now your templates may not display, or I should say your available templates may not display exactly like mine do. If you can, please find the calendar that I'm using, but if you can't find that, you really can use any calendar. But if your computer is set up like mine, in the first row, third from the left, is the 1 month basic calendar any year. So take a quick look. If you can find that, that's a great calendar to use. Go ahead and take your mouse and point to that calendar. And like I said, if you cannot find the exact calendar I have, select a different calendar. That will work just fine. And if you'll double click, you will end up in Word with a calendar. Now, if you choose the calendar I selected, it is going to appear with the current month. Now, depending on when you're watching this course, you may have a different month and year than I do. But go ahead and don't change anything here. Just let it keep whatever month and year that displays. And I want you just to move down and click the OK button. And then at the next box, click the OK button again. And there we have. There's a calendar template. And you might find that to be useful to you if you ever need to create a calendar. So if we had time, we could fill in many dates with this. But remember, our whole goal here is just to learn how to save files. So let's go ahead and let's just insert one event for one date. Now, when you insert information, you're going to have to make sure you click underneath the numbers so that you'll have room to fit in the information you want to. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to pick a date. I'm going to pick October 13th. If your calendar is different than mine, pick any date you want. Doesn't matter to me which one because we're just kind of experimenting and learning how this works. And what I want you to do then is underneath the number on the calendar block, I want you to click. And remember when we click, the reason we're clicking, we want to move the flashing insertion point where we want to key information. So once we've clicked, you can see my insertion point flashing under the number 13. I can move my mouse pointer anywhere. I can kind of set it aside because right now I'm not in a pointing mouse mode. I'm in a keyboarding mode. So you've picked a date, you've clicked, you have your insertion point flashing, and that's where the information is going to be is going to appear when you key it. And let's just go ahead and type computer class. So I'm typing computer space and then class. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit to show you what I've typed if you're having any trouble seeing that. All right, so all I did, I just typed computer, I pressed my space bar, and I typed class. So if you were going to use this function of Word, you would probably type more than one event, but we'll just type that event so that you can see how this works. All right, so what we've done now, we have created a template, we've typed information on it. Now, if we were to close Word right now, we would lose all this information. Right now, the information is in the memory of our computer, which is very temporary. In order to use this calendar again, we need to store onto a drive. And remember, for this class, the drive that we're storing on is our USB drive. Okay, let me change the view of this again, just so you can see you don't need to worry about changing your view. I just want you to make sure you can see my calendar. Okay, so we're going to save this. Now remember, any commands that we want to work with the file, we use our File tab. So I want you to take your mouse. It will change to a pointer, and I want you to go to the File tab and give it a good click. Remember, when you do that, you're in the area called the Backstage view. Don't worry if yours doesn't look just like mine. Our only focus here in the Backstage view is this area right here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to save this file. So any file that you create in Word or any other Windows application, for example, Excel or PowerPoint, you have to save it if you're going to want to work with that computer again. So we've already clicked the File tab. I want you to go ahead, take your mouse pointer, click on Save. Now when you do that, you're presented with the Save As dialog box. Your Save As dialog box may not be the same size as mine, but it should look very similar. There's two things we need to do when we're saving a file. Number one, we need to navigate to the place where we want to save this file. Now remember, we had talked earlier that Windows 7 computers come with libraries. And those libraries allow us to store different types of files. Now we have just created a document in Word. So I want you to notice when we save, the computer is automatically going to put it in the Documents library. Now if you were working on a computer that was your own computer, or maybe a workplace computer, and let's say you worked on it every day, it would make sense that you saved into the Documents folder. But remember, the whole point of using the USB drive is it's portable, and for people who may not use the same computer all the time, but may want to work on different computers, it makes sense to save it to the portable drive called the USB drive. So we don't want to save to the Documents area. So we have to be able to navigate to find our USB drive. Now I want you to remember when we were in Windows Explorer, that's the place where we renamed the folder and where we created those, where we renamed your USB drive and where we created the resume and calendar folder. You should remember that this is the navigation pane. It looks just like the navigation pane we saw in Windows Explorer. Remember, we discussed in that section that we were going to focus today on the computer section. So you may need to scroll down to find that computer section and to see everything inside of it. And to do that, I'm taking my mouse, I'm pointing it over the scroll bar. And you may have to press and hold down with your left mouse button. You need to scroll so you can see the entire computer section. Because you'll remember from Windows Explorer, it's in the computer section that we're able to find our USB drive. And you need to make sure that computer section is expanded. Remember, we talked about the triangle. The triangle needs to be displayed so that you can see the computer section. Now, in the computer section, you want to find your USB drive, and you should be able to find that pretty easily because that has your name on it. One more step then. we are creating a calendar, so we want to save it to our USB drive. And remember that USB drive is like a file cabinet. You want to save it to the folder inside that USB drive. So if you can't see your folder, I can't see my folder, you may not be able to see your folder. Remember, we need to expand that drive. We need to use the triangle, the expand collapse triangle to do that. So you want to move your mouse to the triangle, you want to click, and that expands it. All right, we're almost finished. So we want to save this to the calendar folder. So we need to click on that calendar folder, and when we do that, that becomes selected. So when you're saving, you want to make sure where you saved to is selected. So you are now in your USB drive in the calendar folder. You can tell where you're saving to because it's highlighted, or you can come up here and look at this bar, and this will show you the path that you're saving to. So computer, into the drive, and into the calendar folder. Okay, so we've decided where we're saving it. Now, we're going to give it a file name. Now, when you save a file, the computer is always going to give it a name. The name might be one that you can use, or it may be one that's just not quite specific. So my computer is suggesting that I call this 2012-1. That's not a very helpful name. So when you save files, you want to name it in a way that's very specific so that when you want to find it again, you can. So this is a calendar, so I know that I want to put the word calendar in it, but I want to make it more specific because I might save more than one calendar. So to make this specific, I'm going to put the name of the month and then the word calendar. And I want you to do the same. So we're going to replace whatever name is in there. And to do that, you want to move your mouse. And you've probably noticed that the mouse can change in the pointer that it displays. And what I want you to do is come very close to your file name so that your mouse displays as what we call an I-beam. This is different than the pointer that we've seen before or the hand icon. And you're just going to click to highlight that. I just did one click and it became highlighted. On your computer, maybe one click will work. If that doesn't work, you might have to press and hold your left mouse button and drag across there, but do what you need to do to get that highlighted. And then when something's highlighted, we can type right over it to replace the text. We don't have to press the delete key. We don't have to press the backspace key. We're just going to go ahead and type October, or you type whatever month you're in. I'm typing October calendar because I have an October calendar. Whatever month you have set up for your calendar, that's the month you should use. When you name files, like I said, it's very important. Name it so that you can find it again. So give it a very unique name so that you'll know when you're trying to find that file again what it contains. Okay, so we're going to save a file and we're going to save it into our calendar folder. So once you've completed that process of naming it, to save it, you can follow what I'm doing here with my mouse. You're going to come down to the bottom right and you're going to click the Save button. Great, and now you're back in Word and you have saved it. So here's our calendar saved with our one entry or our one event. Now way up here where I'm moving my mouse at the top of Microsoft Word, this is called your title bar, and you can see that we've now named this October calendar. Okay, so we have saved a file and we've saved it to our USB drive. Let's do that whole process one more time just to review. So we're going to close our calendar and then we're going to create a resume using a template. So first step, let's close this file. So if you will, take your mouse, click File. Remember, give it a good click so you're in your backstage view. And then over here, you want to follow my mouse here. We want to close this file. Now, we're okay to close this because we've saved it. It's always important to make sure you save your information before you close it. And in fact, if you close this and you hadn't saved it, the computer would remind you and it would give you the option of clicking on a Save button. We've saved it, so we're just fine. So we're going to go to Close and click. Okay, so now we're back where we started in Word with a blank document. So let's go ahead and let's find a resume template, and let's customize that resume with some of your own information. So remember, we're working with a file, so you're going to go ahead and click the File tab, and that brings you into your Backstage view, and then you're going to go ahead and click New. Okay, and then once you've done that, you want to go ahead and move to this search area. So you're going to click in that search area, and then once you've done that, you're going to type resume. Remember, spelling's important, so you're going to type R-E-S-U-M-E. So it's R-E-S-U-M-E. And remember, we're doing this because we want to search office.com for the resume templates. So now that you've typed resume, you'll press enter. Okay, now I want you to notice you're going to get a lot of information here. You're going to get resumes, and you will also find that some of these are cover letters that go with resumes. Now you may not have exactly what I have showing here, but what I'd like you to do is to find a resume, and I'm going to pick this first one in the the third one in the first row. It's called Resume Origin Theme. If you can't find that one, if you will, just go ahead and find any resume. And when you pick one, make sure it doesn't say cover letter. Make sure it just says resume. So you do not want to pick one that says cover letter for chronological resume or cover letter for functional resume. We don't want a cover letter. You want to find one that doesn't have a letter in the description. It just says resume. Okay? If you can't find the exact one I have, find another one because you've got lots of choices. Now to open it, you're going to take your pointer and double click. And there's your template. Okay. Now, a resume template has what we call placeholders. And those allow you to replace the information with your specific information. Now certainly we don't have time today to create a whole resume for you. So all we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and find at the very top of the resume the placeholder that says your name, or in my case it says COVA because I'm working with a COVA computer. So yours might say name, or yours might say the name of the organization where you're working today. But regardless, this very top area, if it says name or the name of your organization, I want you to replace that with your name. So to replace the text, you want to highlight the text. Okay. Like I said, your resume may not look exactly like mine, and that's okay. But you just want to find the area where it makes sense to put your name. You want to highlight whatever is there, and then you're going to type over it. So go ahead and type right over that. Put your space. Okay, and you probably want to do your first name and your last name. You can either do your real name or you can just make a name up. So I'm going to go ahead and type a name in there. Now remember that templates are there because they're useful, and this actually might be useful to you sometime to create a resume. But for today, we just want to put some information in there just to practice saving files. Okay, so you've gone ahead and created that. Now remember, this is just in the computer memory. If we want to use this again, it's not good enough that it's just in the resume. I'm sorry, that it's just in the memory. It needs to be stored. So to store it, we have to save it to our storage device, which is our USB drive. All right, so let's go ahead and save it. Take your mouse pointer, click on the File tab, click on Save. Now, look what happens here. It's going to go ahead and save to the last place we saved to. So if I look up here, this is called my computer path. I can see it saving to my computer, to my USB drive, to my calendar folder. Well, that's not quite right. This is a resume. So we want to save it to the resume folder, not to the calendar folder. So how do we do that? Well, this is where we have to come back to this navigation pane, and we have to be able to expand the USB drive so that we can see the folders inside. So this is why it's important that we understand that our USB drive is here in the computer section. That's where I'm moving my mouse. And then we have to click the arrow That expands our USB drive so we can see our folders. We want to change the selection from calendar to resume. So we want to take our hand icon and click on resume. Remember, whatever is highlighted is where we're saving. So I can see I'm saving it to my resume. I can look up here at my path and see I'm saving to computer, my USB drive, and then resume. Now the other part of using the Save As dialog box is giving our file a name. All right, my file is Maria Smith. That's a good start if my name is Maria Smith. Now the only thing is I can't tell from that file name what type of a document is this about Maria Smith. So remember, our file name needs to be unique. It needs to be specific. So when we want to come back to it again, we can find it. So what I'd like you to do is change this and add the word resume. So we're going to, after your name, we're going to type resume. We're going to take that mouse, put it in that file name area. Remember, it displays as an I-beam. So we want to, the first time we click, it may be highlighted, so we need to click again after our last name because we want the insertion point flashing. Remember, when you key information, you've got to get the insertion point flashing where you want to key the information. So after Maria Smith, I'm going to press my space bar, and then I'm going to type resume. So my file name is Maria Smith Resume, and I'm saving it to my USB drive in the resume folder. So once you're sure you have selected the resume folder, you've keyed the file name, whatever your name is, and then resume. To complete this process, we need to save the file. So you're going to click Save. And then you can tell it's saved because up in the title bar, it reads Maria Smith or whatever your name is, and then resume. Okay, so we have saved 2 files to our USB drive. So we're going to close Word, and then we're going to go back into Windows Explorer, and we're going to take a look at how those files are now contained inside our folders. Go ahead and close this file in Word, and to do that, follow my mouse. I'm up here on the top right. I've moved my mouse pointer to the red X, so I'm going to close. You probably still have a blank document open in Word like I do, so let's close that. And that should then take us all the way back to the desktop. Now, you might remember when we first started using the USB drive and we put it in the computer, an autoplay window came up. And once that came up and we wanted to view the files, we clicked on Open Files. Well, that only comes up when you initially put the USB drive in. So if you have the USB drive in and you've been doing some work, say for example in Word, and you want to look at the files on your USB drive, you need to navigate to the Windows Explorer. That's pretty easy to find. On any PC, you're going to find a Windows Explorer icon down here. Remember this gray bar? That's called your taskbar. And you want to find the shortcut that looks like a folder, and you want to point to that, and that's actually called Windows Explorer. So just think about if you want to find your files on the taskbar, look for the shortcut that looks like a file folder, and it's called Windows Explorer. And click on it one time. Okay, now you're back in Windows Explorer. Now we've been talking about the navigation pane, and we've talked about that if you are working with a USB drive, it's important that you know how to navigate to the drive. Now remember, I'm going to move my mouse around in that area. That drive is here in the computer section. And your computer section should be expanded so you can see everything underneath. So I can quite easily find my USB drive there in the computer section. But my USB drive is collapsed, and yours might be also. And remember, when it's collapsed, I can't find the folders. So what I want to do is take my mouse, click on that expand collapse triangle. That's going to expand it and show me my folders. All right, let's see what's inside the folder. Go ahead, click on the calendar folder. And look, there's the October calendar that you created. Now look at it will show you the date it's modified. So I happen to be doing this on this date at this time. Yours is going to display whatever date and time you created it. It's also going to indicate what type of document is this. Well, this is a document that was created in Microsoft Word. I can also tell it was created in Microsoft Word in a visual way because the Microsoft Word icon is a blue W. Now, this is kind of tiny, but over here on the left, I can see what looks like a little piece of paper. There's a tiny little blue W. So that would tell me that that was created in Microsoft Word. Now, let's look at the other file we created. Remember, we created a file and we saved it here. I'm moving my mouse there into this resume folder. Go ahead and click on Resume. When you do that, you will see the resume file that you created. Now, remember, this area of Windows Explorer is called the navigation pane. And the white area inside Windows Explorer, that's called your content pane. That just shows you the contents of your folders. We don't have a lot in our folders yet, but as you start filling those up, that content pane will become more full. All right, now, when you are in the Windows Explorer and you found the file that you want to work with, you can go ahead and open it pretty easily. So I've decided that I want to do a little more work on my resume. Then you've decided the same thing. So we have our resume displayed. We're going to go ahead and work on it. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our mouse pointer. Go ahead and follow what I do. Take your mouse pointer, click anywhere in the name of your resume, double click, and look what happens. It goes ahead and opens it in Word. So let's make a change to this. Let's go ahead where it says type your address, click on it just one time. That's a placeholder. So that area with brackets is a placeholder. Click on that. That becomes highlighted. And go ahead and let's type an address. So let's do 111 First Street, or you can type something else in if you want. 111 First Street. I'll put a comma and a space, and I'll type Columbus, comma, space, Ohio. And I'll press my space bar 2 times. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see better what I'm doing. So I type 111 First Street. I put a comma. I put a space. I type Columbus, comma, space, Ohio. And then between your state and your zip code, you should press space bar twice. I'll type 43235. Or any zip code you want. Okay? So we've just made a change. Now remember, this is just in the memory. If we want to save this, we need to save our file. So to do that, you're going to come to the File tab and click Save. Now remember, we already gave this a name, so it's not going to take us back into that Save As dialog box. Once you've saved a file for the first time, as you're making changes to it and updating it, if you go to File and Save, it will just automatically update and you'll have the newest version of your file. Now, there is some more information about saving, like maybe saving 2 versions of the same file. If you need to learn how to do that, you'll need to take a Word 1 class. Okay, let's close this file by clicking the X, and then we're back at Windows Explorer. And I want you to notice that the time has probably been modified. So if your last version was saved at a certain time, or your first version was saved at a certain time, when we just went ahead and added the address, it has updated the time. So whatever time you added the address, that time was updated. Okay. Well, we've covered how to use a USB drive, how to create folders, how to create files. We've talked about our Windows Explorer. Remember that you can always go back and review the class. That might be beneficial to you. So at this time, we're going to close Windows Explorer. And that will bring us back to the desktop. And one last thing I do need to show you is how do you remove a USB drive. It's very important when you're done working in Windows that you close all windows. And before you remove that USB drive, you need to properly close it and make sure it's safe to remove it. You don't want to corrupt any data or lose any data on that USB drive. So to remove a USB drive properly, you want to take your mouse on the right side of the taskbar. There's a, a very, very tiny icon. And you can see I've got my mouse over here on the right side of the computer. When I hover my mouse over that teeny tiny arrow, it shows me that that is a Show Hidden Icons. I want to click on that. Now, here we have even more tiny icons. You want to find the icon that I'm pointing to. It's the Safely Remove Hardware and Eject Media, and it looks like a USB connection with a teeny tiny little check mark and a green circle. You want to click on that. All right, now, you want to find the word eject, and you want to click on it. And then you want to find this message, safe to remove hardware. The USB mass storage device can now be safely removed from the computer. When you see that, you know it's safe to remove your USB drive. You can go ahead and pull your USB drive out of the computer. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so once you've removed the USB drive, you can have a way that you could view any of the files that you've created on that USB drive on any computer, because remember, that's a portable storage device. Thank you for taking part in Computer Newbies Part 2, and we look forward to working with you again in one of our other classes.